The morning air inside the studio was filled with lights, laughter, and scripted smiles. The audience clapped loudly as Michael B. Jordan walked onto the set of The View, waving calmly, dressed sharp but relaxed. He had come to promote his new film, a serious drama about justice and memory, and to speak briefly about his work in African American youth mentorship programs. The hosts welcomed him with warmth. Whoopi cracked a joke about his past roles. Joy Behar teased him about dating rumors, and the energy felt light, even joyful. But then Sunny Hostin leaned in, her tone sharper than the rest. "Michael," she said with a practiced smile, "you've played some of the most powerful black men on screen. Don't you feel a deeper responsibility to use your platform more? Aggressively, politically speaking?" The air in the room shifted. Michael blinked. The smile on his face didn't drop completely, but something behind his eyes cooled. He leaned forward slightly and responded, "I think I've been pretty clear about my commitment to the community. Through the roles I choose, the voices I amplify, and the causes I support." Sunny cut him off gently. "But don't you think being clear is not enough anymore? Don't you think silence or careful neutrality is a kind of betrayal when people look up to you?" The studio went quiet. Whoopi looked down at her notes. Joy looked nervous. Michael didn't answer right away. He looked at Sunny long and hard, then said quietly, "Are you asking me about silence, or are you repeating someone else's question?" Sunny raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" I said. Michael replied, "Louder now. Are you speaking for yourself, or did someone write that line for you?" A faint murmur ran through the studio audience. Sunny's voice sharpened. "One wrote anything for me? I'm asking the questions people want answered." Michael's jaw tightened. He reached for his mic, unpinned it slowly, and stood. "Then maybe the people should also ask about who funds the questions." He turned to leave. The audience gasped. The camera cut to commercial. Within 2 hours, the clip was online and everywhere. News outlets posted headlines like, "Michael B. Jordan storms off set in political clash and actor refuses to take responsibility during live show." Social media exploded. Some defended him. Others accused him of arrogance. But behind the scenes in the control room of The View, chaos ruled. Producers were yelling, arguing about who approved Sunny's question. One assistant whispered to another, "He wasn't supposed to react like that. She went off script." Someone pulled Sunny aside. She looked pale. "We're getting pressure from upstairs. They want to fix this. You're trending, and not in a good way." Meanwhile, in a small apartment in Brooklyn, journalist Maya Caldwell sat in front of her laptop, watching the clip over and over. She didn't care much for a celebrity drama, but something in Michael's final words stuck with her. "Ask about who funds the questions." She paused the video at the exact moment he said it. Behind him, a brief graphic flashed across the lower third of the screen, sponsored in part by the Meridian Policy Foundation. Maya frowned. She had heard of them. A DC-based foundation known for vague public education initiatives, but with deep links to political donors, arms manufacturers, and quiet influence campaigns. She opened a fresh notebook and scribbled 3 words: Meridian, View, Michael. She wasn't sure what the connection was yet, but she knew how to follow invisible strings. That evening, Michael released a short video on his social media account. "No, I don't regret walking off," he said calmly. "Sometimes the loudest thing you can do is leave, especially when the room is filled with hidden microphones." It wasn't a rant. It wasn't angry, but it sent another wave across the internet. Reporters called his publicist. The View stayed silent, but someone else noticed. Inside a sleek office in downtown DC, a woman named Erica Voss watched the footage from her corner desk. She wasn't part of the media. She worked for a lobbying firm and organization that helped craft narrative alignment strategies between media outlets and special interest groups. And she didn't like what she saw. She picked up her phone and made one call, Michael Jordan is off message. She said, "We need to contain this." The voice on the other end replied, "Do it quietly. No more attention." Erica nodded. "I'll handle the journalist too. She's already digging." Miles away, Maya typed into her secure database. She found that the Meridian Policy Foundation had, in the last 6 months, donated money to several media shows, including The View. She kept going. Then she found something chilling. One of the board members at Meridian had also been listed as a communications advisor for Sierra 7 Defense, a contractor known for overseas drone testing in Africa, and Michael B. Jordan. His latest advocacy campaign was quietly pushing for investigations into illegal weapons testing harming rural communities in Ghana. Maya sat back in her chair, heart pounding. Michael hadn't stormed off because of pride. He had walked away because someone was trying to silence him. And now someone might try to silence her. Maya Caldwell didn't sleep that night. She sat with the glow of her laptop lighting her face, tracing names, donations, and timelines that connected the Meridian Policy Foundation to something far deeper than a bad interview question. The more she looked, the more it became clear. This wasn't about Michael B. Jordan's politics. It was about what he was getting too close to. She pulled up archived footage from 6 months ago, a quiet press event in Accra, Ghana. Michael had appeared there unannounced by major media, speaking not as a celebrity, but as an advocate. He had visited a village where several children had fallen sick, their symptoms strange and sudden. Local doctors had traced the illness. 2 chemical residue found in nearby fields, residue linked to drone activity. The drones carried no flags, no insignias, but were believed to be part of a private U.S. defense contractor's field testing, Sierra 7 Defense, the same name that kept appearing in Meridian's financial records, hidden in small shell donations and subcontracted PR budgets. Maya took a deep breath. "Kay," she whispered, pressing record on her voice memos. Oh, Michael was silenced. Not for what he said, but for what he saw. The View was the smokescreen. She had enough for a pitch. Her editor at International Signal, a hard-hitting global outlet, picked up immediately when she called. "You're talking about Sierra 7. He said, his voice suddenly sharp. "Careful. That's not just a contractor. They do deep cover testing for Pentagon-backed research." "I don't want to write speculation," Maya said. "I want to follow the funding." From Michael's activism to Meridian to the media network that tried to trap him, there was a pause. "Start writing," the editor said. "But if you get even one solid source inside Meridian or Sierra 7, we go live." Maya nodded, then paused. She had a name. An old source. Someone who used to work in the Policy Development Division at Meridian before quietly disappearing from public view. Zeke Lorman. She found him in New Mexico, working under an alias at a private cybersecurity firm. After 6 ignored emails and a failed phone call, she sent one final message. "Zeke, if I mention Sierra 7's Ghana ops on the record, will you deny it?" 10 minutes later, her phone rang. His voice was rough, low. "How much do you know?" "Enough to make people nervous," she said. "Not enough to get to the center." Yet there was silence. Then, "Meet me." Albuquerque, Thursday. "I'll bring what I can." Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, Michael B. Jordan sat in a quiet room. His phone dark, his team on edge. His publicist had begged him not to say more. Studios were pulling meetings. A talk show appearance was canceled. Headlines now questioned his emotional stability, calling him difficult, even ungrateful. All for refusing to play along. But Michael wasn't interested in saving face. He was watching the coverage not of him, but of Sierra 7, and how none of it existed. Nothing in the mainstream, no stories, no mention of his Ghana visit. It had been buried, till Maya. He read her article in International Signal as soon as it posted. It was cautious, filled with questions, not accusations. But it made one thing clear. What if the world's most powerful defense contractors weren't just shaping policy? but also controlling who gets to speak about it. Michael smiled faintly. She had guts. The article triggered a chain reaction. Independent journalists began picking up the Sierra 7 thread. Some made noise on podcasts. Others posted old photos of black, unmarked drones flying over African skies. Suddenly, a conversation was happening outside the control of media handlers and PR executives. But that also meant the walls were starting to close. In New York, a crisis meeting was held inside a polished midtown skyscraper. The attendees included Meridian's legal counsel, the former Pentagon strategist, and a man with no nameplate who only spoke once. "She knows about the ACRA tests," one of the lawyers said, nervously tapping the table. "We underestimated." Her, the strategist, leaned back. And the actor. Unpredictable. Not political, but smart. Very controlled. If he speaks again, this explodes. The nameless man stood and adjusted his coat. Handle it. Soft if possible, loud if necessary, and get ahead of the story. That night, a suspicious op-ed appeared on a major U.S. news site titled, "When Celebrities Play Activist, the Dangerous Game of Unverified Advocacy." It criticized irresponsible speculation about foreign policy and clickbait journalists spreading conspiracy theories. No names. But Maya felt the sting. The recording played on a loop in Maya's ears. Time, the same polished voice. SunnyHostin.com and Professional, practicing a question that millions believed had come spontaneously on live television. But now it was clear, the moment that sparked national outrage had been designed, engineered, approved. She knew what this meant. This wasn't just about a celebrity argument. This was about control of narrative, of information, of public trust. And someone had just risked a lot to send her that clip. Maya traced the email through 3 proxy layers, but whoever had sent it was careful. No trail, no digital prints. Just the truth dropped silently into her lap like a weapon. She uploaded the file to a secure drive and sent it to her editor with a short message. They scripted it. He knew. Now we do too. The reply came back fast. Triple verify. Then we publish. While the editorial team began fact-checking, Aya focused on her next move, her meeting with Zeke Lorman. By Thursday afternoon, she was in Albuquerque, sitting at a metal table in a quiet diner tucked between a pawn shop and a dry cleaner. Zeke arrived late, wearing a worn baseball cap and faded denim. He looked like a man who hadn't slept properly in years. He slid into the booth. "Without saying hello, you're either brave or stupid," he said. "Both, probably." Maya replied. Zeke pulled a small hard drive from his coat and placed it on the table. "I worked policy coordination for Meridian," he said quietly. "We were told we were advising media platforms on social harmony strategy." Sounded noble. But it was code for managing dissent, especially when it came to military exposure overseas. Maya leaned in. "What about Michael?" Zeke nodded. "We flagged him 6 months ago. When he visited Ghana, he met with an NGO that had data on Sierra 7 drone activity. That NGO was on a surveillance list. We were told to pre-neutralize the actor's message. So we did what Meridian always does. We shaped the stage." "The View?" Maya asked. "Exactly. They have partnerships with multiple networks. Soft, influence-suggested questions. Segment framing. The idea was to put Michael on the defensive. Make him look oversensitive, arrogant. The goal was distraction. Not destruction, but he didn't play the part." "No," Maya said. He walked out. Zeke gave a tired smile. "And now you're in the middle of a storm." He pushed the hard drive toward her. "Everything I kept. Emails, meeting notes, memos that tie Meridian to Sierra 7. And both to a deeper program we weren't supposed to question, Project Longline." "Longline," Maya repeated. "Drone integration and testing zones outside U.S. soil. Africa was just phase 1. Latin America is next." She felt a chill run through her spine. "Why are you giving this to me?" "'Cause I spent 5 years." convincing myself I was helping build safe narrative environments, but I was helping bury the truth. You can't undo that, but maybe you can expose it. Maya left the diner with the hard drive hidden in her coat. She didn't go home. She didn't go to her hotel. Instead, she took a rented car and drove 6 hours to a safe house in Colorado set up for journalists under threat. Only her editor knew she was there by morning. Her article was ready. Title: Manufactured Outrage. The script behind Michael B. Jordan's walk-off in it. She exposed how Michael's confrontation had been shaped by Meridian using the audio, rehearsal, verified producer notes, and Zeke's documents. She published parts of a leaked script segment that matched Sunny Hostin's on-air question word for word. She included funding documents showing a $1.2 million donation from Sierra 7's Political, affiliate to Meridian's media division, but the real blow came at the end of the article. Why would a weapons contractor care about an actor's message? In Africa, because he was exposing the first phase of a covert testing operation that never received congressional oversight. And because a well-placed question on morning TV is sometimes more powerful than a missile. The article went live at 8:02 a.m. by 8:30 Meridians. Servers were down by 9 o'clock. The View's producers released a statement denying any scripting by 10 o'clock. Michael B. Jordan released his own video. He looked straight into the camera. No studio, no production. I didn't leave because I was angry, he said. I left because I realized the questions weren't questions. They were orders wrapped in smiles. We can't keep mistaking performance for truth. And we can't. Let silence become safety. Millions watched, millions shared. And somewhere in D.C., a quiet alarm went off in a boardroom filled with suits, who no longer felt in control, because the truth was no longer leaking. It was flooding in the hours. Following Maya's article, Washington, D.C. was unusually quiet. Not in the peaceful sense, but the kind of silence that comes right before a storm. Behind closed doors, meetings turned urgent. Phone calls weren't returned. Legal teams drafted statements in anticipation, and a private memo circulated inside. The Capitol, with 4 words scrawled at the top, contained Caldwell. Isolate Jordan. But containment was already impossible. The article had struck nerves across the globe. International watchdogs began citing Maya's findings. Al Jazeera aired a special segment titled Scripted Dissent: How U.S. Media Shapes Global Truth. In Ghana, the NGO Michael had visited received renewed attention and was now being contacted by European human rights investigators. And in the middle of it all, Michael B. Jordan disappeared from public view. No more videos. Statements. Not even sightings. Maya feared the worst until she received a strange message. An envelope slid under the safe house door. No return address. Inside was a hotel key card and a note in all caps. Reykjavik, 3 nights only. Trust nobody. At first, she thought it was a trap. But something about the handwriting seemed familiar. She boarded a flight to Iceland the next morning, telling no one except her editor. The hotel was quiet, the lobby nearly empty. When she arrived at the room, she knocked once. Then twice. The door opened. Michael stood there, eyes tired, beard untrimmed, but very much alive. I figured they'd follow you, he said, stepping aside. But then I figured they're already following both of us. He didn't waste time. He showed her what he had. A flash drive encrypted. With data he claimed to have smuggled out of a military contractor's network during his advocacy trip. He never planned to go public, not until the time was right. But when he refused to support a Pentagon-funded film glorifying U.S. drone warfare in Africa, he became a problem. That's when Meridian stepped in. The View became a tool. They weren't just trying to embarrass me, he said. They were trying to discredit me before I said anything real. Maya nodded. And now they're trying to bury it all. Open the drive together. Inside were field logs, internal memos, and video evidence from Sierra 7's first drone test sites. Locations matched reports from the NGO in Ghana. One folder was labeled Phase 2 Integration, Chiapas Region, Mexico. Another, Test Site. Another planned operation. Maya stared at the screen. "This isn't just a scandal," she whispered. "It's a doctrine, a system." Michael sat back. The media makes noise about democracy while contractors write the silence between it. Night, Maya sent selected, verified files to 3 international news agencies with a promise. Full report incoming. Global coordination needed. Embargo until Friday. She knew us networks would hesitate. But global pressure could force their hand. Meanwhile, in Washington, Sunny Hostin was in a storm of her own. Under public scrutiny and facing internal review, she had been advised to take a short leave. She was panicking. She hadn't known the full plan, only that producers gave her a question and told her it would get people talking. She never expected it would lead to international outrage. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from someone, labeled simply Legal Liaison. "You are not to speak to the press. Remember your NDA? This isn't about you anymore. Stay in your lane." But Sunny had begun reading. She saw Maya's article, watched Michael's video, and for the first time, she realized she had been used, not just as a journalist, but as a pawn. "Joe," she drafted a message to Maya. It was short. "I want to talk. I can give you names." In Iceland, Maya stared at the message. Michael looked at her. "Can you trust her?" he asked. "I don't know," she said. "But if we want to expose the machine, we'll need someone who's been inside it." 2 days later, Sunny appeared on a private video call with Maya and Michael. Her voice trembled at first, but her story was clear. Producers had been handed question frameworks from a communications group called Colburn West. She now knew was a front company tied to both Meridian and Sierra 7. "They used our platform to shape public perception," Sunny admitted. "We thought we were leading conversations. We were following scripts." Maya recorded the call with permission and added it to her growing file. The story was now bigger than one actor, one journalist, or one show. It was a blueprint of how democracy had been turned into theater, and the actors, they were waking up. The floodgates opened on a Friday morning. International outlets from London to Nairobi to Sao Paulo published Maya Caldwell's full investigation within minutes of each other. The headline echoed across time zones: Operation Long Line, Media Manipulation and the Global Testing War. The report outlined how Sierra 7 Defense, backed by political donors and shielded by think tanks like the Meridian Policy Foundation, used entertainment media talk shows, scripted interviews, influencer networks to discredit voices of dissent. Michael B. Jordan's on-air confrontation had been just one thread in a much larger fabric of control. The story included leaked audio, internal memos, producer emails, and the video testimony of Sunny Hostin herself, recorded over a grainy signal but crystal clear in its implications. Her voice carried across the digital world. "We weren't journalists. We're broadcasters for an agenda. I regret everything I said that day. But I won't stay silent now." Within an hour, #Operation Longline was trending across platforms. U.S. networks hesitated to cover the story. Some dismissed it as selective reporting, others focused on Maya's methods rather than her evidence. But the pressure was mounting. International credibility was crumbling. And when The View's executive producer was suspended pending investigation, the American press could no longer look away. Coe stayed silent. Coe not out of fear, but because he knew this wasn't his moment anymore. This was bigger than him and Maya. She wasn't finished. Her next goal: connect the dots from Sierra 7's African and Mexican testing programs to U.S. legislative protection. Someone had been keeping these operations legal. Someone powerful. She dug into lobbying records, campaign finance trails, and quiet committee meetings. One name surfaced again and again: Senator Vincent Rourke, chair of the Senate Subcommittee on Technology and Defense. On paper, Rourke was a moderate patriot. In practice, he was a gatekeeper for defense spending, intelligence, oversight, and private contractor immunity. His voting record showed a disturbing pattern. Each time legislation threatened to expose or regulate experimental weapons programs, he blocked it in committee, quietly, without press. Maya brought the evidence to a trusted contact inside Capitol, a young staffer named Donnie Trujillo. She met Donnie in a coffee shop 3 blocks from the Senate offices. They spoke in low voices. "Rourke's untouchable," Donnie warned. "He's wrapped in 6 layers of legal firewalls. What if I have proof he signed off on drone trials in foreign territories without notifying Congress?" Maya asked. Donnie blinked. "Then you're sitting on the biggest constitutional breach since Iran-Contra." Later that night, Donnie secretly delivered classified budget amendment notes, redacted in most public records. The original document showed Rourke's direct involvement in funneling funds to field response and integration protocols in West Africa and southern Mexico, coded language that matched Sierra 7's trial programs. It was the smoking gun. But as Maya prepared her follow-up story, a storm struck. Her secure drive was breached. Files were corrupted. Backup accounts were targeted. Her editor's office in New York received a bomb threat. It wasn't subtle anymore. Someone wanted this story dead. Maya went dark for 3 days. Disconnected. Everything, no calls, no messages. She slept in a backup safe house in Colorado behind reinforced doors and zero signal. Then, at 2:43 a.m., her phone lit up, a video message from Michael. His face looked tired. "Serious? I know what they're doing to you," he said. "I've seen it before. We're not going to fight them by staying quiet, so let's fight loud." The next morning, Maya published everything, all at once. Not just through international signal, but through a web of independent outlets: academic platforms, human rights organizations, and encrypted activist servers. The files were shared globally, translated into 16 languages, indexed and mirrored, so they could never be deleted again. Senator Rourke's office issued a denial, then another, then silence. Within 24 hours, coalition of lawmakers called for an independent investigation into covert defense contracting influence over domestic media. Protests sparked in front of news headquarters. Students marched in D.C., holding signs that read, "We're not the audience, we're the target. Drones in Africa, lies in America." Silence is the real weapon. Maya knew the fight wasn't over. The machine wouldn't collapse in a week. But something had shifted. They had exposed the gears. And now the world was watching the machine work piece by piece until it couldn't anymore. The fallout had begun to take shape not in explosions, but in meetings, leaks, resignations, and quiet panic in rooms lined with soundproof walls. Operation Long Line was now a phrase repeated on cable news, used in debates on foreign policy, and whispered in corporate boardrooms that had once believed themselves untouchable. In Washington, Senator Vincent Rourke sat in a private office, flanked by 2 defense lawyers and a communications strategist. His face remained blank as headlines rolled across the muted screen behind him. Senate intelligence under fire over secret military programs. Actor Michael B. Jordan tied to drone testing exposure. Journalist Maya Caldwell, hailed as whistleblower ally Rourke, clenched his jaw. "This is not a crisis," he said coldly. "It's a leak, and leaks can be patched." Strategist cleared his throat. "The committee wants to call you to testify. Closed door for now, and if I refuse, then it goes public. And your name becomes the face of global corruption." He didn't respond. Instead, he turned to the window and stared at the Capitol dome. "Then we control the story. I want Caldwell framed as reckless. Discredit her sourcing. That actor, he's a celebrity, not a soldier." But it was already too late. Outside the walls of power, Maya's work had triggered something bigger than any single press release. University campuses were holding forums about state influence on journalism. Military families who had lost relatives in drone strikes were demanding answers. In Ghana and Mexico, community leaders were speaking to international human rights councils, offering testimony that matched documents Maya had released. And inside The View, everything had changed. Sunny Hostin returned for one last appearance, not as a host, but as a guest. The studio was silent as she took her seat across from a special guest interviewer from International Signal. The tone was serious, almost historical. "I didn't know," Sunny said simply. "I should have asked more questions. Known better, but I let ambition blind me." She paused, her voice trembling. "I want to say this to Michael B. Jordan directly. I'm sorry. You didn't walk off because you were weak. You walked off because you saw the trap. I didn't." The clip went viral in less than an hour. Michael, watching from a private workspace in Reykjavik, closed his laptop quietly. For the first time in weeks, he exhaled with something that almost felt like peace, but the machine was still moving. Maya's editor called with a warning. Federal contractors are tightening operations. Coburn West scrubbed their website. 2 sources have gone silent. Hey? And Zeke Lorman's phone hasn't pinged in 36 hours. She felt a jolt in her chest. "You think something happened?" "Don't know," the editor said. "But if they take Zeke, you're next." That night, Maya received an encrypted message from an unknown server. It contained only coordinates deep in the Nevada desert and one phrase: "He's alive, but not for long." It was signed Orion. She remembered that name. The same anonymous whistleblower who had tipped her off about Sierra 7 in the early days. Maya packed a small bag and boarded a flight under a fake name. No calls, no digital footprint. She drove 5 hours from Vegas in a rented car with no GPS, guided only by a paper map and adrenaline. When she arrived at the location, she found a rusted-out fuel station long since abandoned. In the back room, beneath a trapdoor covered in sandbags, she found Zeke, pale, hurt, alive. "They grabbed me," he croaked. "2 nights ago, tried to flip me. Said if I didn't change my testimony, I'd disappear. Permanently." Helped him drink water and made a satellite call to her backup team in Colorado. Extraction was arranged in 2 hours. Before they left, Zeke handed her a small flash drive. "They didn't find this," he said. "It's long lines phase 3. "What is it?" He looked her dead in the eyes. "Implementation inside U.S. borders." Her blood ran cold. The original belief had been that Sierra 7 was using developing nations as test zones for surveillance drones and chemical mapping. But Phase 3 detailed plans to introduce the same systems in U.S. cities under the cover of domestic emergency response programs. "This was never just foreign policy," Zeke whispered. "This was rehearsal." By the time Maya returned to her team, the drive had been duplicated, encrypted, and verified. And though exhaustion weighed on her like armor, she knew what had to happen next. It was no longer just about revealing a scandal. It was about preventing what came next. The final report was already being drafted. Its title was simple: The Homeland Trials. And if she could publish it, there would be no turning back. Rain tapped gently against the window of Maya's safe house as she sat before her laptop, staring at the title on her draft screen. The Homeland Trials. It was the final piece, the conclusion to the months of exposure, fear, and truth-seeking. Everything had led to this. And she knew what publishing it meant: no more hiding, no more shadows, only light. The flash drive from Zeke had revealed chilling details. Phase 3 was not speculation. It was a fully approved domestic program greenlit under emergency preparedness statutes. Buried deep in defense spending packages labeled Climate Response Readiness. The cities listed were all familiar: Baltimore, Detroit, El Paso, Cleveland. Places with high populations of vulnerable communities and histories of unrest. According to the documents, unmanned surveillance drones were to be tested under the guise of natural disaster drills. But Zeke had shown her the real blueprints, coded language for facial indexing, behavioral scoring, and real-time tracking based on biometric heat signatures. Sierra 7 wasn't just testing abroad anymore. The U.S. was next, and the media already briefed, already complicit. Maya's hand shook slightly as she typed. She had evidence, sources, confessions. She had Zeke's first-hand account of his kidnapping, plus Sonny's video testimony, Michael's private files from Ghana, and internal communications showing that Senator Rourke had authorized the trial zones without notifying any civilian oversight boards. Her editor called again. "Sure you want to publish this under your name?" he asked. "'Cause once it's out, there's no curtain to hide behind, and they will come for you." Maya didn't pause. "They're already coming. This story belongs to the people, not to me." Then we go live at midnight. But outside her safe house, the storm had already begun. At 11:17 p.m., just 43 minutes before publication, a black SUV was spotted circling the neighborhood. The team monitoring Maya's security network flagged it. Then came the power outage. Then the cut satellite line. She grabbed her laptop, the hard drive, and the backup key, and bolted to the underground safe tunnel wired for manual upload. Her breath fogged in the cold as she plugged into the hardened relay port and hit send. The upload bar began to climb. 17%. 33%. 61%. Footsteps above. Voices. She froze. Someone was in the house. But then, ping, upload complete. She yanked the drive out, powered off everything, and crawled through the tunnel toward the backup escape route. Behind her, she heard the sharp crack of a door being kicked open. But she was already gone. By the time dawn touched the horizon, the world had changed again. The Homeland trials, covert domestic surveillance, and the quiet war for America's streets went live across over 120 mirrored platforms. It exposed everything: the internal push to militarize emergency response programs, the media's role in framing dissent as extremism, the government contracts disguised as humanitarian technology investments, and the cities, already quietly wired for surveillance without their residents' consent. People flooded the streets by afternoon, peaceful at first, then louder. Protesters held signs that read, "We are not lab rats. Tell us when the tests end. No drones on my block." Senator Rourke was called to a live televised hearing within 48 hours. He arrived flanked by lawyers but had no defense for the signed memos with his name. When questioned, he blamed contractor overreach. But Maya's evidence showed his digital signature on 3 of the 4 final approvals. He was booed, walking out of the chamber. And then, unexpectedly, President Cordero addressed the nation. Her face was solemn. "There are times when governments move too fast and forget who they serve. I will be calling for a full independent investigation into all operations related to Operation Longline and its domestic extensions." It was a political calculation, but it also marked the first official acknowledgement of the truth. Michael B. Jordan released a single sentence to the press. "It was never just about me. It was always about us." And Sonny Hostin announced she would be leaving broadcast media for good, launching an independent journalism fund to train young reporters in ethical resistance reporting. As for Maya, she never returned to her apartment, changed her name, moved cities. But her voice remained. She wrote a book titled The View from Below, a reference to how the people always see the truth first before it's packaged and sold. Back to them, it became a global bestseller. She gave only one interview, recorded in shadow. The next war won't be fought with tanks. It will be fought with questions. And the people who ask them will be hunted. But in the background of that interview, on a shelf behind her, sat a framed printout. A single line from a protester's sign. Truth can't be scripted.